Yeah, I grew up in a large family, pretty active family, four other brothers and a sister. So we spent a lot of time outside because we just got sent outside. So we grew up in a woodlands out the back door. Really fell in love with paddling the summer that I came to Marine on St. Croix, and I taught paddling at the Bible camp. Really, at that point, was Kiwanis Camp here in Marine on St. Croix, leased by the Union Gospel Mission at that time. So I was on the river every day without really knowing the river ahead of that, but just fell in love. So when we were choosing to where to raise our family, and we have 3 adult children now, we really settled on Marine on St. Croix. So we've had a fine history of paddling these waters. I had a chance to work with a camp up in the Boundary Waters about 6-7 years ago, and met a gentleman, Lee Dibvig, who was a guide up there, and he taught paddle making. So I got really interested in that, and so we've been able to forward that into the folk school.
And what led you to decide to work with Marine Mills Folk School specifically?
Yeah, as soon as I heard that the folk school was starting, I thought of Lee right away, because my family had taken a class from Lee on paddle making, and 4 students can make a paddle at a time. So a family of 5, I was the one that kind of helped everybody, but fell in love with the process. I just have a fondness for Lee, and right away when the folk school started, I called Lee and I said, Lee, you got to come teach at the folk school. And he responded that I'm 83, and I said, so, and we talked it through, and he was willing to come and spend the weekend with us at our home and help me teach the class, and really pass that gift on to me, which I've been able to share with others.
What about Lee's classes, and what about Lee as a teacher, do you think made his classes so popular? And do you apply some of those same approaches in how you teach and how you guide people?
Lee, if only I could be as calm a resource as Lee. It's one of those guys you just want to be in his presence. And he taught the class for my family in his home, in a workshop in his home, which then you also get Dorothy's hospitality. So hospitality was big with his class. We had teenage kids at the time, late teens, and first year of college, and they how do you make them happy with something to do for a weekend? And I said, we're not telling you what to do, we're just going to go. And we ended up at Lee's home for the first day session, and they just didn't want to leave. And they were so excited to get back the next day when we did the knife work and all the sanding. And Lee was patient with them, patience beyond what I have. But I've tried to take what I learned from Lee. I know that I've changed the class to my personality a little bit. Every time I've taught it, it's gotten a little bit better. And I too look to be able to say that I've taught this for decades. He's really done it for 30 some years. So,
Wow.
So that's an ambition. And if I can live up to the master, it's certainly, and every class I teach, I give him credit as a mentor. And that is the reason that I named my paddle Ode to Lee, and was able to share this paddle with him recently.
Hey, that's cool. That's really great. And so you've been helping people, your family to begin with, and then the people you've been teaching with. But what was the motivation to finally get around and make yourself one?
Yeah, this COVID thing, darn it, made us all pause a bit, didn't it? And I had all the wood cut. There's a lot of prep for the class, a lot of ripping of boards, and I really try to be prepared when the students get there. And so I had all this wood ready for the class that I think was canceled. The first one we had to cancel was March or April.
Yeah, it was back in April.
And so there sat the wood. And come summer, I had a friend that wanted to make a gift paddle, and kind of motivated me to say, hey, I've got all the goods ready to go. So we masked up in the garage, and you're kind of masked up anyway with all the sanding. So I was able to really spend some time. I probably took a little more time than I'd allow my students, and really just loved the process of my own. I look to make more, and I look to, again, share that gift with others when the classes resume.
Yeah, just the urethane coating or whatever you put on there is just so beautiful.
Yeah, I took a little extra time on my coating, and I had the luxury of it. And students leave my class with the paddle unvarnished. And I've had students who 6 months later, I asked them, have you got that done yet? And they're like, I'm going to sand a little bit more. I'm going to sand a little bit more. So you can really, hone it in. And but then to see the ones that get done, and people have brought them by to share with me, or we had a get together of a paddle this summer, and to see them and know that they'll have kind of a life's journey as a paddle is just awesome.
So, and I understand that you took this paddle for its first trip. On a trip, a special trip.
Yeah, ceremonial for sure. The paddle had been finished, and we had a chance we paddle the river here quite often, but I didn't want to use the paddle until I had a chance to kind of show Lee, and then it was meaningful to me to take it up to Seagull Lake, where Lee guided, and where my son has guided, and my daughter-in-law have guided. And it was meaningful for me to have that be the first kind of dip and first paddle. And so my wife and I took an anniversary trip this fall and stopped in Sandstone to see Lee and Dorothy.
How are they?
Great hospitality as always, and just so good to be with them in safe distance, but just really fun to share with him. He didn't want to let it go. I think he thought it was a gift to him. And I said, I'll make you another one. But so fun to share with him. And then again, just kind of meaningful to me to kind of dip it in its first water, where this kind of whole process started.
Wow. And during the pandemic summer, so what really a great thing to do. And did just the pandemic change your trip in the Boundary Waters from other years? Yeah,
we stayed at Wilderness Canoe Base, which is just a great serves so many different people throughout the summer. Well, it's a camp, so they had to scale back. They had 9 staff. It felt a little, first class to have a cabin with a wood fire, but the meals were delivered to us versus the dining hall, which is also part of the vibe of the camp, is to be in the dining hall with others. But they delivered right to our door, so it was kind of like a pretty nice wilderness retreat. The days were a little cloudy and cold, but it's always good to paddle. And the sun broke out the last morning and was just glorious. And so we'll go again.
Oh, great. And did your wife take the paddle that they had made? She had made?
Yeah, she's used her paddle now since I think we did the class in 2014. So we've had some summers of paddling. And I'd always borrowed my son's, which is about the same size. And he moved off and took his with him. So I was kind of left without anyway. So
that's cool. Touching back on your classes, what do you hope participants will take away from your class?
It's teaching a class is kind of like that hot potato. You have a thing and you want to get rid of it, and you want it to pass on to others. And it has been really, just in the first year of classes, to have 2 specific students that I know of, maybe more, but one that turned around and right away made gifts for Christmas for his family, and another who I saw this summer who had perfected his first paddle, but just really had a desire to build another, and then was on to build for his son-in-law, I believe. So passing on something that gets passed on, I think that's the full cycle. That's what folk school is really all about.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me into my next question, which is our mission is to strengthen connections through traditional arts and crafts. Mm-hmm. And we also believe that people will find joy in the process of creating. Do either of these statements resonate with you, and in what ways?
Well, they resonate with me in a big way in that I took a class from the folk school. Not only have I taught, but I took the wreath making class and with my daughter, and it was delightful. And she saved her frame from last year, and I saved my frame, and we'll be out foraging and making wreaths again. So it truly is that the enthusiasm is there. I know that I will have other students making paddles, and I know that there are people in anticipation when classes begin to take the class, and I look forward to that.
I should note that we're making this video on Tuesday, November 3rd, Election Day in the U.S. While the outcome of the election is important for many reasons, here in Marine on St. Croix, we're electing our mayor and several city council persons. You have a particular interest this year. Can you explain why?
Yeah. Well, Marine on St. Croix is a pretty special place, and we've called it home for 20 years. We've really known of it for 28 years probably. And this season of election, I was invited and chose to run for mayor of our little village. And that result will be in fairly soon. Actually, my wife and I are heading walk down to the village and vote after we shoot this. So I do have a particular interest in all the good things that are Marine and all the good people that call Marine home. So,
well, that's how we keep it the way it is, with people getting involved. So thanks for stepping up to run. January, I was thinking about things in the future, and January will be a big month as a president will be inaugurated, the Marine mayor will be inaugurated, but I think that maybe there are other things happening in your family in January.
We are waiting with bated breath our first grandchild, which will be a son, we found out. And my daughter and her husband lived with us this summer during COVID, and then ended up purchasing a home not too far away by Lake Phalen, which is actually a very well paddled lake. So we look forward to putting the paddle in there as well, and eventually with our grandson.
How fun. Well, congratulations to everyone.
Yeah.
Anything else I should be asking you about your interest in woodworking or paddle making?
As we've sat around or as we don't know the outcome of this COVID pandemic, I've been rattling around in my head ways to teach a class virtually, a woodworking class. Kind of got obsessed with my own yard work this fall, summer, fall, and but look for something maybe to happen this winter where you could get a kit and we'll be together on Zoom and you'll make something.
That sounds great. Okay, Kevin, thanks so much for sharing some time with us today.
It is a pleasure.